Hey there, folks. This is Tim Wheaton. We are the MMA Sucka Crew. I am joined by Frazer Krohn after a big weekend of fight. Frazer, how are you doing? What's going on today? What'd you think of the weekend?
Yeah, it was a long weekend of catching up on fights, to be honest. I was working all weekend and we had the Bellator card, which I think for the first time in a long time outdid on paper the UFC card, and in reality it also outdid the UFC card. So we'll review both of them. I know that you watched the one championship this weekend as well. So there's plenty to catch up on.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right that there is no way, shape, or size that Bellator card was playing second fiddle to the UFC's Fight Night. That Bellator card was clearly superior. So we're going to talk about the coronation of AJ McKee, just an amazing fight that he put on, an amazing run the man's had. We'll also discuss some of Sean Strickland and Urijah Hall and talking about the jab. I think more than anything, I'll do a quick rundown of one championship. But let's start with some fantasy matchmaking before we jump in. What do you got for me this week? Let's talk some fantasy fights.
This week we've got karate versus karate, Stephen Thompson and MVP.
Oh, nice.
I
This is a good
really want
one.
to see that one. So we saw karate versus Muay Thai when Thompson fought Darren Till, and that was very much a chess match. 5 rounds, first round or two, not an awful lot happened. They were very much, I'll throw the jab and see your reaction. I'll use the side kick and see how, what is at the front of your brain to react to that. And then it really got into it. People say it was a bit of a boring fight, but I love a fight like that. I think it was really interesting to watch. And MVP's got it's almost like a mirror image of Thompson, the wide stance, the hands down, using the reactions to get away. And I just think it's, again, like we said last week, I don't want to see Henry Cejudo versus Brock Lesnar because they're never going to be never going to happen. But they're both in and around, they're 170 pounders. So I think, if we did more crossover fights instead of these crazy crossover boxing fights, more crossover cross promotion fights, which has been, it's a big talked about topic this weekend, especially with AJ McKee and whatnot. I think MVP Stephen Thompson would be high on my list of fights I want to see.
No, I would be absolutely into that fight. Like you said, it's a karate versus karate background. I think both men really thrive in the first layer of striking, or like really who lands first, who's able to get off first, who's able to measure the opponent's reaction first. So it ends up being very much close to a chess match kind of fight, is what I can imagine happening. Fight. Who do you see winning? And it's got to be a decision, right? Like, do either of these guys land the shot that they need? Right? It's hard to land on either guy.
Yeah, I think definitely a decision. We've only seen, I think, from recent memory, we've only seen each of them knocked out once, and it was the Superman punch on from Pettis on Thompson, which is not
Awesome.
something you see every day. But
Yeah.
it's one of those that if anyone gets caught with that, probably going out, to be honest. Especially, it's not that Thompson had his hands down and that's the reason he got knocked out. It was just a inventive, really good shot. And we saw obviously MVP get knocked out by Lima with the leg kick, taking away the leg and catching him on the way up. These are two knockouts that they're strange knockouts. They're not knockouts you see every week. They're not barrages up against the fence, and they're not, you know, ground and pound finishes. They're strange knockouts. So like I'm echoing what you're saying. I think they're both too defensively sound to be finished by one another. I do
And
wonder whether we'd see MVP wrestle like he did against Paul Daly.
and what a weird thing that was, that they had
Mm.
a fight in London like a week after that fight, and they thought the battle for London, clearly it's MVP versus Paul Daly, a kickboxer versus a karate guy. We'll put him in, like, where was it? It was like Massachusetts or something like that in the
Mm.
US. And then they're just gonna wrestle each other like a couple of white belts.
Yeah,
Like, what a weird
and it
situation
wasn't.
that
Yeah,
was.
it wasn't high. It wasn't a GSP versus a Khabib where you got high level wrestling and they're both setting traps. It was fairly rudimentary ground game, to be honest. And do what you need to do to get the win, but at the same time, if you're going in as the karate guy, don't try and change your game too much just to downplay Daly's kickboxing. His left hand. It's just stick to what you know, I think.
weird situation, especially in a 5-round fight. It was such a letdown fight because I was looking
Exactly.
forward to it too. I thought it was going to be a great fight. That was in Connecticut. Well,
Hmm.
who cares in Connecticut?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think, if that was in London, like we've got MVP versus Lima in London. I think October, mid October, beginning of October. MVP's a name in England.
Yes,
He's viral. He gets the knockouts, he gets the walk off KOs, he gets the flying knee KOs and whatnot. He's going to sell because not only is he from England, but he's also a name. Like you say, you've got the battle for who's the best British fighter at 170. You got MVP, Daly. Daly's been in and around the UK scene he was an OG of the scene.
it was, yes,
And yet
absolutely.
you just put it in America, where I'm not sure. Obviously, it sells because there's bad blood between them, but there's nowhere near it sells. Nowhere. It wouldn't doesn't sell as well as it would have done here. So it's
Oh,
just competing
absolutely. That could have been a big headlining fight. Like that would have been awesome. But I
for
think
sure. Yeah.
MVP, he really does thrive when opponents make mistakes. They duck in at the wrong time. They're dodging the wrong thing. And I don't know if Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is that guy. I don't know if Stephen Wonderboy ever makes that mistake. I think it ends up
Hmm.
being really if they're going to meet, they're going to meet at the end of their ranges and trading teep kicks at each other. It's a really interesting fight. Both are about the same age, kind of mid to late 30s at this point. Both are still looking pretty good. I don't think either of them have slowed down based on their last couple of fights. They're both looking really good. I don't know what the future holds for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, though, because we just saw him lose to Gilbert Burns. He's not quite running for a title at this point. He's had a few injuries. I know that we are setting up for Michael Venom Page versus Douglas Lima 2 down in London, and that's going to be a great fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. What do you see here on that fight, on the rematch?
It's a difficult one to call because I think obviously MVP was winning the fight when they fought previously, um, until he got caught with that crazy leg kick, uppercut, hook kind of sweeping. I still don't know what to call it, but I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, but I still don't know how to explain that one.
Yeah.
But obviously Douglas Lima's coming off the back of two losses now. I think both by decision, weren't they, to Mousasi and the current 170-pound champ.
Yeah.
But
Combat Sambo world champion Yaroslav Amasov.
yeah, but I think he was well beaten in both of those as well.
Yeah.
Is it sort of a last chance saloon for Douglas Lima to be one of the top contenders? Yeah, he's phenomenal. I think he would have fitted into the UFC 170 pounders perfect in his prime. It would have been right up there with the best, but the level of competition that MVP's been facing, I know that he fought Ross Houston, who's a good prospect, but that's sort of all he is. He's a Cage Warriors debut in Bellator facing MVP. It's under the sort of the lights of a bigger promotion. The level of competition that Lima's been consistently facing year after year after year after year is probably just going to give him the edge. And I think he could probably, if he does find himself 2 rounds down, take it to the mat. He was able to deal with MVP quite handily on the mat in their first fight.
True.
So I think he's got the more well-rounded game. If he finds himself 2-0 down in the 5-rounder, 3 rounds, make it a little bit boring and just line him for 3 rounds and probably get the decision victory.
Oh, absolutely. MVP has been fighting really well. Like you said, he's looked really good, especially on highlight reels. He's looked absolutely amazing. Level of competition, like you said, is very questionable. Whereas it's almost the opposite for Douglas Lima, where he looks terrible in his fights, but he's fighting the best guys who are outside the UFC. Rory McDonald, Gegard Mousasi, and then the Combat Sambo World Champion Amasov. Like he couldn't be fighting better people. However, he looked bad fighting these guys. He looked timid in these fights. He's putting himself against the cage and not landing any significant strikes or doing as little as possible to cruise to victories in these fights. If there is a time for MVP to really this is it. This is when I beat this guy and then I go for the title. It's a good opportunity. It's a good time for him to do this. I can see MVP winning this fight, but Douglas Lima has fought better competition and is a better fighter overall. If he is in his head a little bit too much, He is at risk of losing, and it might be a good time for MVP. But I look forward to that one. Hopefully, we get credentialed. Are you going to that one? Are we going to this
Yeah,
one?
I know. I'd like to. I was talking to my brother about it yesterday, and it's one of those where I'm thinking that we can at least try. What's the harm in trying, and then should be a good weekend. I don't know how solid the card is. I've seen a lot of criticism from the card from top to bottom, but with that being said, when you've got a headliner like that, it's, as we saw in the UFC this weekend, sometimes the on paper cards don't deliver, but then in reality, you get a couple of highlight reels from the card itself. So
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I would love to go to it. I haven't been to a live fight on a major card ever. I've been to one small one, and it was like a bunch of amateurs making their debut. So I'll give you a fantasy matchmaker that one maybe happens, and then one probably does happen. So I'll give you two here. So, and I'll give you the one that probably does happen. But Kayla Harrison versus Cris Cyborg. What do you think? So Cris Cyborg, she's been around in MMA for like 15 years. She's one of the trailblazers of women's MMA. She's an absolute beast. She's a brawler. She's a former featherweight champion in the UFC. She is getting on in age. Kayla Harrison is probably about to win the PFL title. I don't doubt that in any way. She's a two-time Olympic judo gold medalist, of course, as we all know. I think Kayla takes that fight, but I'm a big fan of Kayla Harrison. I love Cris Cyborg too, but I'm a huge fan of Kayla Harrison. I think that's a favorable fight for her to look really good, probably in the Bellator cage at featherweight. But what do you think of that fight?
yeah, for sure. That was actually when I was thinking about potential matchmaking. I was thinking Kayla, who could we match Kayla Harrison up? Realistically, Clarissa Shields in her debut didn't really show. Obviously, we got to appreciate it is her debut, and I think it's a lot easier to come from a judo background into MMA than it is a straight boxing background into MMA.
Yeah.
Give Clarissa Shields. I know I believe she is scheduled again. I'm not sure if she's got an opponent yet, but she is scheduled again before the end of the year in the PFL cage. So we'll see how her progress is showing. Another name, Amanda Nunes.
Yep. That was my other one.
Together.
That was the other one I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. So that was obviously great minds think alike. But no, I think the Cyborg fight. I haven't seen an awful lot from Cyborg since the Nunes loss. She following that loss, she obviously ground out a decision against Felicia Spencer, who hasn't looked great since then. She lost to Norma Dumont. And then obviously signed for Bellator. I think she had one fight, and then she had the title fight with Julia Budd. She, beat Budd with relative ease. I think I was surprised about that when I thought Budd's size would play a factor in it. She's one of the bigger ladies that could probably hang with Cyborg. I thought she'd be able to take the Cyborg power, but apparently not. And then, we saw her against Leslie Smith last time out that, yes, she dominated Leslie Smith, but I don't regard Leslie Smith as even she's not a top 145er. You've got, even as shallow as the UFC's featherweight division is, I think a lot of those 145ers do better than Leslie Smith did. So I think, to be honest, I think Harrison takes it. I think, like you say, it's a good stylistic match. We haven't seen Cyborg have to fight off her back in, I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw Cyborg on her back other than the Nunes fight when she was knocked out. So I think Harrison has the skills, the ability. She's got the size. I think it's going to be a big factor in that one to actually be able to get it to the floor. Cyborg in her UFC career, I think she debuted against Lena Landsberg, who's a 135er. She fought Yana Kunitskaya, who's a 135er.
Yep.
She fought Tonya Evinger, who's a 135er. These are all 135-pound people, just not cutting weight or just cutting a much smaller amount of weight. They haven't got the frame to hang with 145ers like Cyborg, who is realistically
who's quite big for 145.
I was going to say, realistically,
big,
she's a lightweight. She's a 155er.
Yeah.
She's a healthy 150 pounder, let's say. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Harrison versus Cyborg maybe at a catch weight of 150.
I could see that, yeah, because Kayla says that she's not really into weight cutting. I know she did once before, but she says she hates doing it.
Exactly, and we've seen it. I think we've seen it wants in Invicta when she's able to land ground and pound elbows and whatnot. Because savage, she's a savage, and similar to you, I'm a big fan of Harrison, and she's only getting better. She's I think far away from her peak still. Maybe not her athletic peak, because she's competed. She hasn't been an MMA fighter since she was 21. She was a judoka, but I still think she's far away from an MMA peak, and that's a scary prospect for all the 145ers out there.
Yeah, everything is aligning so well for her. And like you said, she was a judoka. She wasn't competing in regionals or anything. She was at the Olympics. She couldn't have been competing against better competition. Right now, everything is aligning. She's training at American top teams. So she's training with guys like we talked about last week of Joanna Jacek or Jorge Masvidal or Kyoji Horiguchi or Dustin Poirier. Like, she's training with the best of the best. So a lot of things are really aligning. That I think the Cris Cyborg fight is probably a huge coming out party for her. And I'm not sure if the UFC can actually pay her enough, because her hesitation with fighting the UFC is get paid more in the PFL. And I think Bellator can really write her a big check if they are going to make this a headline fight, if they're going to make this a title fight, because that is the biggest women's fight you could make outside the UFC easily. Absolutely. Cris Cyborg, to her credit, is a purple belt, or she might be a black belt by now, but in 2012, she was earning gold medals in IBJJF World Jiu-Jitsu Female Championships and winning gold medals there. I don't think that's not equivalent to so her grappling is quite good. I don't think it's equivalent to a judo gold medal shot for shot. However, she does have a great equalizer in that she hits harder than any woman in history. She hits very, very hard. And I think that surprises a lot of people. Even someone like Holly Holm, who's been in a lot of fights, kickboxing fights, I think was surprised by Cris Cyborg's power. So she, in a 5-round fight, Cris Cyborg's a live dog. She can still land a powerful shot. She can still land a flurry, I think,
for sure, yeah. That's, and you said it's earlier on, I wanted to touch on a point. You said it's the biggest fight outside of the UFC, biggest women's fight. I'd argue that it's probably the biggest women's fight in MMA, because the UFC, you've got Amanda Nunes, other than maybe Nunes Shevchenko, 3, what would it be? But does that sell when you're trying to sell it to the casual that, yes, Shevchenko's been on this winning run, but at 10 pounds under what she would fight Nunes at? Nunes, I don't think, can cut any more weight than she does when she fights at 135. So other than that fight, I'm not too interested in seeing Holly Holm Nunes fight again.
I don't care,
because it was pretty one-sided.
Yeah.
And then where are the stars then? You got stars, Wiley Zhang, Rose Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. None of those are ever going to fight Nunes. So I think maybe to the casual fan, Nunes, maybe Holm, or Nunes Shevchenko is the biggest women's fight. But to us that, don't just watch the UFC and don't just watch the headline fights, I think the Harrison Cyborg fight, from a technical, tactical point of view, is probably, maybe not name-wise, because not everybody knows the Cris Cyborgs and the Kayla Harrisons of the world, casual-wise. But for us, that is the kind of fight that's a get up at 3 a.m. and watch it live kind of fight.
I would 100% do that. All right, let's move forward. So we had a 3 big cards this weekend. We had one Battleground, which Pranchai, he's won over 380 fights. This was like his 388th win. He's a Muay Thai stadium champion, and then he came into one championship and defeated their champion. So he's now the one champion at 125. That's Pranchai. And it was an awesome fight. It was a really good Muay Thai fight. He's been training in boxing. He's got 3 wins in boxing, and his hands were looking really sharp. So this kid at 26 years old with over 400 fights, he's either going to fizzle out because his body's done, or he's the future. Ong Le Ensong, I always screw up the name, from Malaysia, got a much needed first round knockout and then said, let's come together on Malaysia. Gustavo Ballart, he's a Cuban Greco-Roman Olympian, and he's 4'11", fighting at 125. But here's the thing. You would think he's like closing the distance. For the first round, he's fighting like Wanderlei Silva. He's just this insane, like, brawling dude. And everyone he's fighting is like 5'3" or 5'5". He is so small, but he won this fight. He eventually figured out the wrestling and was able to control really well, because clearly he's an Olympian. Rito Fagat got a much needed win. She was able to she's a Commonwealth gold medalist from India. She's a very good wrestler, and she kind of throws a lot of overhand rights, but she figured in this fight really used the dominant wrestling, looked really good there. Now on the Bellator card, this was the end of their featherweight Grand Prix. AJ McKee, he's 5'10". He's big for that weight class. He comes out, he's looked flawless for most of his MMA career. He's only fought professionally in Bellator, 18-0. He nearly knocks out Pitbull, and then he chokes Pitbull unconscious. What an end to the Grand Prix, and what a story for the young 26-year-old AJ McKee.
Yeah, for sure. We had earlier on in the week, I think they've been throwing little shots at each other all, since they got matched up in the final. Good few months ago now, I know that they had their semi-final bouts, but they were throwing shots. I'm going to beat you up in front of your dad. I'm going to beat you up in front of your kids, and it's borderline getting a little bit ugly. But I think it just stayed on the competitive side of trash talk. That it's been a big factor, a big talking point. Sorry, between we've touched on it with McGregor and Poirier and whatnot. I think this just stayed on the healthy competitive nature of that line, that no one crossed the line really. And then going into the fight, I listened to so many podcasts, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell on Morning Combat.
Yeah, they're good stuff. They're good listen.
50-50. The Fight Disciples, 50-50. And that's how I saw it. I did go with McKee. I thought the youth would probably be on his side. And although he's got 18 fights, he hasn't got a lot of miles on the clock. He's very rarely in a barn burner where he's getting dropped and he's dropping his opponent and he's really struggling to get the victory and whatnot. For the most part, he's dominant.
Yep.
And I thought that those miles on the clock with Pitbull, that we've seen him in walls before. I thought that would play dividends, and I think it did. Yes, it was a big head kick, and he did catch him. With the shots, but I don't, would that have put Pitbull out a few years ago? Who knows? But I think that the finish when he managed to lock up the guillotine, and something that I don't think has been touched on enough, is he locked up the guillotine. The knee to the body that McKee landed on Pitbull, I thought that was beautiful because he's fighting the hands and he's trying to stay relaxed. Knee to the body is going to just tear the air out of your body, making it then even harder to have to concentrate on your breathing, try and fight the hands. And the finish came. There was a lot of controversy. I know Big John McCarthy was saying, McKee made a mistake by celebrating. Don't mention he got the win. He got the win. If he would have then gone on to be knocked out, then that's the talking point. Should he have celebrated? Should he? He didn't. He got the win. Celebrate his win, and I think it was well deserved. To be honest, there's not an awful lot to talk about in the fight, because for the first minute and a half or so, it was very much they were figuring each other out. A couple of teep kicks, a couple of sort of stomp kicks to the knee, and then it just exploded within 10 seconds. The fight was over. So it was I really enjoyed it, but it's not an awful lot to break down for a change.
No, yeah, no, I do on one hand understand what John McCarthy's getting at, that you keep fighting until the referee literally pulls you off. That's always what he said, of course. I think honestly, Bellator made a really cool moment. Like AJ McKee made a cool and memorable moment by he just put his hands up. It looked kind of cool. If a photographer snapped a good shot, that's almost a Muhammad Ali like moment. And I'm not comparing him to Muhammad Ali. I'm saying the photograph of him putting he scored a knockdown, so you put your hands in the air. That's cool as hell. And then he finished him off with the choke. And no, I didn't. That's a really good insight that you said you spotted the knee just before the choke was sunk in. This guy's good. This guy's good. He's aggressive. He's good. More than anything, he's 5'10" at featherweight. 5'10" is equivalent to Georges St. Pierre and Dustin Poirier. So at featherweight, he's big. And Pitbull is only about 5'6", but he also uses his length extremely well. He does fight long. He stands long. He has his hand in your face all the time. So he fights really well. I thought this was an amazing moment. This is really what we talked about of what the hell Bellator needs. This is it. They need a narrative. And I think AJ McKee might be it.
Don't they?
Yeah. Tell us more. AJ McKee might be it.
That's exactly it. I'm echoing everything you're saying. That we said, I think it was last week or the week before, that the promotion for online isn't there. It's not just second rate to the UFC. It's not even on the same sort of page as the UFC. You just go down their Twitter and all they're doing is sort of retweeting and, putting the occasional 5 second, highlight reel knockout. But yes, that's good, but you need more to be competing with the UFC on a digital scale.
Yes.
But you can only do that if you've got the stars.
Yeah.
And AJ McKee, he speaks well. He's got the, he's Bellator made. He's 18-0, 18 Bellator fights. It's not like he's, we've got, Gegard Mousasi, he's a UFC fighter that's gone over to Bellator.
Yeah.
Or a Strike, he's with him Strike Force and Pride and Dream, I believe, he's fought everywhere. This guy, AJ McKee, is 18-0, 18 Bellator fights.
Yep.
And is Bellator through and through. He's the Michael Chandler of today, where Chandler, made his name and he was Mr. Bellator. Obviously now he's going to try his hand in the UFC. I'm not sure if we'll see McKee move over to the UFC for a good few years, which is, to be honest, it's everything that we want. We want, Pitbull is one of the best 145s on the planet, yes. But let's be honest, the best 145s on the planet are in the UFC. The Max Holloways, the Brian Ortegas, obviously the Champ Volkanovski. There's a beat further down the card, further down the ranking, sorry. So we want to see the best versus the best. And I think if the UFC really want to make a storm, they'll do everything they can within the next few years to get McKee on the books. And, he's got, like you say, he's as big as GSP. He's height-wise. And when I was looking at them in the week, I had to double check that it was a featherweight fighter, not a lightweight fighter, because he's a big guy, and he's got, he can be champ. I genuinely believe that, even in the UFC, I think he matches up well against someone like Volkanovski, who's going to hold a big size advantage over. I'd love to see him versus Max Holloway because they're both tall, rangy, solid all-rounders. And then I think he struggles with the UFC 155ers, but I think most people on the planet do, to be honest. But yeah, I think McKee is I'm almost tempted to say he's a breakout star of the year already, but he was already a star beforehand. But he's just gone from being one of the biggest names in Bellator to now one of the biggest names in MMA, especially, if he would have ground out a 5-round decision, it is what it is. You don't get that highlight reel, but because it was all over within the 10 seconds or 15 odd seconds, the head kick, the follow-up, the celebration, the guillotine, the knee, and then the walk-off.
Amazing.
You can clip that, and that can be played over and over and over. If you don't see that exact sequence in the build-up to his next fight, I'd be very surprised.
Of course. No, it was an amazing sequence. And like you said, this is what they needed. And we are finally talking about this born and bred Bellator fighter would probably be a top 3 in the UFC. And that's what Bellator really needed. And you're not the only one to say that. Everyone on Twitter or anyone that I talk to about MMA privately have said the same thing, that AJ McKee in the UFC would probably be a top 3, and he should come to the UFC and just fight Max Holloway and fight the Volkanovskis. And he would do quite well in those matchups, mainly just due to his size. He's an experienced fighter at this point. This is what Bellator really needed to save their skins. I don't think he's going to jump over at the UFC, because I think Bellator recognizes that he's probably an asset. They're probably going to open the checkbook for this kid.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's an exciting future he's got. He's only 26 years old, undefeated at this point. He's already beaten some of the top guys in that division. He had the big neck crank last year over Darian Caldwell. He beat back Krohn previously. So he's beaten a lot of the guys in the division already, coming up in the Grand Prix as well. This is awesome. Like, this is such a good thing for Bellator, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I think it was the way that it's fallen, whether, it was a perfect weekend for Bellator as well, because, UFC arguably stole the headlines on Friday with so many cancellations and pullouts and weight misses and whatnot. And I think, the Bellator really stole the show this weekend.
It was a good opportunity for them, as the UFC had a pretty weak card, and everyone kept outwardly saying that the UFC is presenting a weak product. And there's Bellator saying like, hey, they had their best card presenting against the UFC's one of their weakest cards that they've done in history. Speaking of the UFC's canceled card, the UFC had more than a 100% cancellation rate. There was more canceled fights for this card than there was actual cards on it. There was more canceled fights on this card than there was actual fights that made it to broadcast. There was only 10 fights and they had more than 10 fights canceled. I think really, what do you want to talk about? The main event, he jabbed his face off. Urijah Hall clearly doesn't know how to counter a jab. There's nothing more to say on this.
Yeah, exactly. And I picked Hall going in because on paper, 4-0 in his last 4. He's got a few finishes, and then I think he got a split decision. But having looked, having looked at his the 4 fights that he did win, I don't know why I don't know why I picked Urijah Hall. He's got the KO win over Bevon Lewis.
Sure. Yeah.
Which was a comeback KO. He was losing that fight.
Sure.
And he knocked him out in the 3rd round. He then had a split decision against Antonio Carlos Jr. A split decision is a split decision. It could have gone either way. He then finished Anderson Silva.
That was good. That was like a proper good timing hook. Like that was good.
It was, but you've got to then consider it's 2020, 2021 Anderson Silva. It's not the Anderson Silva that we recognize as the spider, the goat. And then he had the leg injury victory over Chris Weidman.
They only fought a few seconds, and we don't know anything from that fight. Really,
exactly. We know that he can check a leg kick, but
okay.
He's 4-0, and in those 4 fights, has he really shown any progress from previous wins? Over I think he fought Krzysztof Jotko once and got the victory, and then he obviously lost out to Paulo Costa.
Yes.
With that being said, Sean Strickland got the victory.
Sure.
Just through wanting it more. He was in the face of Hall for best part of 25 minutes. And even at the beginning of the round beginning of each round when Hall seemed to really take on board what his coaches were saying and go out and really it was 30 seconds of good head movement, herky-jerky style, throwing the jab, throwing the leg kick. And that was it. And then Strickland began to take over. Yeah. There was plenty more fights on the card that I think, were a lot better.
Let me jump on the main event before we move forward there. But there was a lot of opportunities for Hall that every kick he threw landed, especially on the low kick. So the low kick is a really good counter to the jab, and he never went back to it. I think, and I hate to say it because it feels like bullying, but Urijah Hall, through his entire career, his worst enemy has always been himself, where he has a bad game face, doesn't he? When he's losing a fight, he doesn't like to be the nail very much. He doesn't work away from being someone who's putting a lot of pressure on him. He doesn't beat very well, and it shows so transparently in his fights. And I mean, I feel for the guy, and I think he comes from an older background where someone like Jose Aldo and Max Holloway is the example I always use of. Aldo is a kind of an older fighter who, when back in 2010, you throw your combination, I'm going to throw my combination, and you throw your combination. When he fought Max Holloway, Max just stays in his face. He's just right there. And that's what Sean Strickland did. It's going to be a nonstop jab. I'm just going to keep jabbing you. You're never going to get an opportunity to counter. You're never going to get a rest. You can kick me in the leg. You can take me down. I'm just going to keep hitting you. Okay. Like, he just keeps coming forward. And I don't think Hall had any idea how to deal with it. And clearly the opportunities were there, but yeah, like you said, I don't know what the future holds for Sean Strickland, how he does against the rest of the UFC middleweights. It's a pretty good division in front of him. I don't know if he beats any of those guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he goes from it. You've got the upper echelons of the division, maybe maybe an Edmund Shabazian or a Jack Hermanson next, but
Hermanson,
I think Hermanson handles him
probably
well. I know on the broadcast Bisping was saying that he's really, really good on the ground, but with that being said, I think Hermanson's one of the better middleweights on the ground. We haven't got in the top 5, top 10, we haven't got a jiu-jitsu specialist on the ground like we had back in the day. We had the Damian Myers, or you've got your Ryan, you got Adesanya, Whitaker, Till, Brunson, Vittori, Costa. These are all stand-up guys who love to bang.
Yes.
Even slightly further down, you've got your you know, your Calvin Gastelums, your Jared Cannoniers, who can both wrestle, but they're stand-up guys.
Yes.
So I think, you know, if he fights a Hermanson who can take him to the ground, but can also strike with him, I think he struggles with some. I think Hermanson's probably the next fight for him, or even the winner of Gastelum Cannonier. I'm not sure when that fight's booked for, but I know that they're booked pretty soon, within the next month or two. So
Sean probably loses most of those fights. I don't know about
exactly.
Kelvin. I never know what's going on in Kelvin's head.
It's a difficult one to pick against or for Calvin Gastelum, I feel. So I've got not a lot of trust in him, to be honest.
The rest of on the card, Cheyenne Buys gets a really cool knockout to ground and pound. You and I were talking off air. Apparently we just don't know the new rules for labeling a grounded opponent. Her hand was down, but that's not the rule now, right?
I don't know the MMA rules or how to judge a fight, apparently, because I picked Sandhagen last week and I'm pretty confident that Cheyenne Buys did an illegal kick. But you could see Mark Smith on the broadcast. He was pointing over to sort of,
I saw that. Yeah.
You know, I think I don't know, but I figured he was pointing over to say, look, can you watch the replay and check if that was an illegal kick? Because if it was, it's Gloria DePaulo, was it? I think
correct.
Cheyenne Buys, yeah. You know, if it was, she's getting the victory because it's an illegal kick and she can't continue. Buys did similar to what McKee did. You know, she landed that kick and
thought it was away. Over. Yeah.
I think it probably was. I don't think the 4 or 5 ground and pound shots were necessary, but you know, it is what it is. I think, and there's a really nice video coming out on Twitter when we saw Buys be told that she'd won the performance of the night, the 50K.
Yeah, and
she really highlighted about fighter pay, but I guess that's maybe when we've got an off week, we can discuss fighter pay. But she is someone that I think that 50K, and I can only assume she's not on much. She won't be on much more than 10 and 10. I don't imagine in a second UFC fight. Maybe 15 and 15 at max. But because she was in the co-main, so
lost her first fight as well in the UFC.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think that 50K for her really goes a long way. And the further down the card, the other is it Melsik Bagdasharian? I'm no good with names.
Perfect.
Yeah. He that was a pretty savage knockout as well. The head kick and finish it off on the ground. I thought that was really good. And Jared Gooden, you know, I think he was unlucky not to have got a performance. Obviously, we can't rarely hand out 3 performances a night, but he was going out there. And if he didn't get the knockout in the first round, he's gassing out within the first 6-7 minutes. And luckily for him, it was just a sweet straight down. Just how are you going to win this fight? I'm just going to throw my right hand just straight through my opponent. I'm just going to walk forward. I'm just going to throw and I'm just going to land on his chin and it's going to knock him out. It's just like, what's your game plan? I'm just going to punch him in the face and finish him.
Hit him as hard as I can.
And it was. It makes a change, you know. It makes a change to not see. It's probably I haven't rewatched it. It's probably a lot more technical than I'm making out, but you know, we don't have a big feint and a pull down, and it's just that I'm just gonna punch you as hard as I can. If I land on your chin, I know that I'm gonna knock you out, and that's what he did. And it was good, you know. I enjoyed that knockout because it's just how you draw a knockout almost.
Just a big right hand. I like this Melsik Bagdasharian. He's from Armenia. He's a young man. He has a lot of kickboxing and boxing experience, and he's got like 5 knockouts in MMA and 6 fights or something like that. He's a promising up and comer. He's a good looking fighter indeed. I don't know what Jared has in his future, but man, we look forward to some more violence from this guy. Should we jump into this weekend's card?
I think just one last thing. I think.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Obviously, we saw Nico Montagne. We spoke about previously.
What's going on? What is with Nico?
Let's forget about Nico. With the greatest respect, let's cut her from the UFC. She's had considerably more fights cancelled or pullouts. Not always her fault, but pullouts than actual. She's had 1 UFC fight, and it was a loss, not including her tough final. you can't miss weight by, well, it's a non-title fight, so by 7 pounds. That's not missing weight. That's failing to make weight. At no point, she would have known this way before weigh-ins day, that she wouldn't be able to make the 136 pound mark. She obviously had been cutting weight, but what did she start? Did she really think she'd be able to cut, 15-20 pounds in that time? No, weighing in at 143 for a 136 pound fight, essentially, because it's a non-title fight.
True.
It's insulting to your opponent, because now your opponent is missing out on a paycheck, missing out on possibly double. Like we say, the UFC do a base pay and then a win bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent's got.
But no, I don't even know if fighting outside the UFC would help her very much. I'm not sure if mixed martial arts is for her, and I hate to say that as an analyst or a guy who writes articles or whatever, but after 7 or 9 canceled fights for various things in this sport, like you got guys like you ever got Randy Couture canceling a fight for any reason ever, and he fought for like 45 years in the sport. Mark Coleman never canceled a fight, but yet she's had like 7 canceled fights in 3 years. Like I don't think this sport's for her, and that's not a bad thing or anything like that. It's not exactly bad, but I can't see her having a healthy future in mixed martial arts.
No, for sure. And on the weight thing, Jared Gooden late notice fight, and he got down to, what was it, 170. So there's no excuses for missing weight by that much. But let's hope that all the cancellations were collated into just this fight night, and we haven't got any cancellations this weekend, because the card this weekend is pretty stacked, to be honest.
It's looking pretty good, isn't it? We got some good ones. We'll start right at the top. And I know that we will have an opportunity to talk about your favorite fighter in Tom Aspinall. I think we've only had one show where we didn't talk about Tom Aspinall. So let's talk about the interim UFC heavyweight title fight, which everyone says is a really good title fight. This makes perfect sense. Wow, great planning. Derrick Lewis versus the French kickboxer Ciryl Gane. What do you see in this matchup? This is a great fight. We're in Houston, Texas, the hometown of Derrick Lewis as well. Keep that in mind. What do you see here?
For sure. I think, it got a lot of criticism when it was first announced, because Ngannou hadn't been out for very long and had supposedly agreed to fight. I think it was Lewis he'd agreed to fight. And, there's a lot of criticism. With that being said, they are lucky that this fight got put on this card, with the Amanda Nunes fight being cancelled due to her, contracting COVID. It's not a bad card, but Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munoz as a main event is not a main event for a UFC pay-per-view fight that you want, to be honest. So they're lucky that this fight's been put on this card. If it would have been put on a different card, or even a fight night headliner, they're struggling. But this fight, for me, it's the bull and the matador. I wrote an article just this morning on Derrick Lewis's top 5 knockouts. Nice. He does not have to be winning a fight. He's the Deontay Wilder of MMA. His technique could definitely do with some improving. It only takes one for Derrick Lewis. Volkov was losing the fight. I watched it again this morning. 14 minutes and 40 seconds. He was well dominated. 1-2, almost knocks Volkov's mouthpiece out, finishes it with ground and pound.
Yep.
Receives the title shot off the back of that. Curtis Blades, I can't remember for sure, but I put money on the fact that I put Blades to win that fight by boring 25-minute decision wrestle.
Almost, like he almost got it too.
Exactly. Ferocious uppercut from Lewis knocks him out cold. So I think Ciryl Gane has got to stay on his toes for 25 minutes. And for me, the question going into this is, can he stay on his toes for 25 minutes and avoid the big right hand of Lewis? And for Lewis, it's, can he land on Ciryl Gane? We've never seen Gane really get hit in the UFC. So How does he take a shot with 4-ounce gloves? We've seen footage of him sparring in Ngannou. We've seen him against Royce, who's got a lot more technique than Derrick Lewis, coming from the straight kickboxing background. But
absolutely, yeah.
He couldn't land on Gane. So can Gane stay on his toes, stay out of danger, maybe even take the fight to the floor for 25 minutes. I don't think we see a finish on Gane's side to Lewis, but can he stay away from Lewis's big right hand is a question for me.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the same. Anytime that we talk about this fight, it comes down to the same thing, that clearly Ciryl Gane is a much skilled and a much better fighter than Derrick Lewis. And he should absolutely win this fight. There should be no doubt that he wins this fight 100%. And there's always a but. But what if Derrick Lewis punches him? That's it. That's all we have to say, right? Derrick Lewis, even when he wins or loses, I don't get much. I don't learn much from him, right? I don't know if he's an amazing fighter. I don't know if he's an amazing striker. He doesn't look good when he wins. He doesn't look good when he loses. He just has the one punch, and he's super funny. So we all love him, of course. And he's a really cool guy, and he's fighting in his hometown. Honestly, yes, Ciryl Gane is the smart pick to win. But what if Derrick Lewis punches him? That's it. That's all we can ever say, right?
That's
so
it.
far, Ciryl Gane hasn't been hit against good fighters. Tanner Bozer didn't hit him. Volkov is a really good fighter, didn't hit him. Rosenstruck, really good fighter, didn't hit him. Junior Dos Santos is a pretty good fighter, even in this old age, didn't hit him at all. So he's never been hit before, but Derrick Lewis hits pretty hard when he does hit. It should be Ciryl Gane, and this leads to the Francis Ngannou fight, which they were sparring partners. They're both French speakers. It sets up a really fun storyline. But yeah, there's no doubt Ciryl Gane's the better fighter, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Derrick Lewis is a good, I don't want to say warm-up fight, because like you say, he hits really hard. And if he lands on Gane, if he lands on anyone, he'll probably go to sleep. But for Gane, it's going to be 25 minutes of being the matador, which is not a bad strategy to prepare yourself for a potential Francis Ngannou fight. Francis Ngannou, like Derrick Lewis, if you haven't noticed already, hits hard.
Yes,
he definitely he's got some power, Francis Ngannou. So, and you're gonna want to, if you're Ciryl Gane or Derrick Lewis, you're gonna want to stay away from that power for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Derrick Lewis, you want to stay away from his power for as long as possible. So it's the perfect sort of almost warm-up fight for Gane. But like you said, how much have we seen Derrick Lewis evolve from his first, maybe not his first fight, but from his title fight with DC?
Yeah.
Has he got better?
I don't know. Maybe.
You don't know, because
maybe not.
Maybe he's got a stronger knockout power now, but you don't learn an awful lot fight to fight. We see, taking Dustin Poirier for an example, see him implement the leg kick against McGregor, and then he implemented a bit more of a wrestling game in the second fight. And then, prior to that, we saw him obviously against Khabib. He can brawl, but he can also outbox you, can outfight you, can take the fight to the ground if needs be.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning, and you physically, you can see the progression. He's getting bigger. He's getting, more. He's the size of. He'd never make him 145 now. He struggled back in the day, but
yeah,
he's a bigger guy now. His technique's getting better. He's getting better on the mic. He's getting better promotion.
Yep.
Outside of the ring, outside of the octagon, sorry, you're seeing all of his ventures. And the same with Lewis. Outside of the octagon, you're seeing loads. You're seeing, he's constantly help in Texas. He's a sort of a big face in his community. Inside the octagon, are you seeing any progression? No.
Probably not. No.
Maybe his cardio is getting better, but we haven't actually seen him have to go deep into the deep waters anymore. Sorry, in recent fights. So personally, I'll be picking Gane, because I do think that he's had enough fights and he's smart enough to stay away from that right hand of Derrick Lewis. And you could probably sting Lewis and take Lewis to the ground if he wants to. But Lewis in his home state of Texas, I think, anything can happen. I think it's a really good fight, and I think the UFC are lucky that they put this one on this card
and added an interim. I can see that. But how, if you're a ticket holder going to the Houston, where is it here? To the Houston Arena.
Yeah, just as
at the Toyota Center.
The Toyota Center.
If you're going to the Toyota Center, you're a ticket holder. How likely is this to be a 5-round snoozer? You got essentially a guy who is a jab, front kick, versus a counter striker and the counter striker doesn't have any reach advantage in this fight. Do you think this is a 5-round snoozer for Gane?
I do. Yeah.
I think so too.
Gane by decision for me.
Yeah.
Because why would he risk it? To be honest, he's in a position where he knows that one more fight he'll go into a title fight undefeated.
Yep.
Coming off the back of 2 straight main event wins. I think it's 2 straight main event wins for Gane.
Yeah.
Obviously against Volkov and against this time Rosenstruck, and so he could enter the title fight 3 straight 25 minutes under his belt. That would have been the question if he would have sparked Rosenstruck and starched Volkov and starched Lewis. Let's say he finished them all with it, or can he go 25 minutes? What's his cardio like over 25 minutes? We've seen him go 25 minutes twice now. So what's the harm if you're Gane in putting yourself at danger, at risk in the hometown of Derrick Lewis to try and search for the knockout when you can just play your game, like you say, jab, teep kick, almost just point fight him. Just point fight there, because for a fact that if Derrick Lewis is down 4 rounds, he's going to be coming out and looking for the big swing and knockout, and that's when you can utilize your wrestling, utilize your ground game. Yep. But you also know for a fact that Derrick Lewis is not the kind of fighter that he's not a point scoring fighter. He will be 2 rounds down and get the knockout. He is not going to come out with a jab and look to jab, low kick, teep, jab, low kick, teep. He hasn't got a very varied game. And I don't think he's also got the skill to be down 3 rounds and set something up in the 4th round to finish it in the 5th. That's just my personal opinion. But I do think that's, especially going up against someone like Gane, who is very technical and doesn't take an awful lot of risks. Yeah. So I echo what you're saying. I think 25 minutes is what we'll be seeing in the main event.
Same. I can't add anything to that analysis. Absolutely. Ciryl Gane's more technical. He's longer. He's also patient, which is going to pay dividends in this fight. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a boring 5-round fight. Now, in the co-main event, due to Amanda Nunes getting COVID, unfortunately, she's not competing on this card. So we have Jose Aldo fighting Pedro Munoz in the bantamweight division. Bantamweight's probably the best division in the UFC. This looks like a pretty good setup for Jose Aldo. I could be wrong. What do you see in this matchup here?
Yeah, obviously we've got Munoz coming off the win against Jimmy Rivera. I think that was at the beginning of this year, maybe at the end of last year. But Jimmy Rivera was that fight was what it was. He worked the low kick well. Do you want a low kick against Aldo? Probably not, because it might wake Aldo up into throwing his low kicks, and I don't think anyone wants that. And it's a good fight, but for the division, I'm not quite sure how much it does. Aldo at 135 he's been good. I worried about him going down to 135 because he struggled to get down to 140, but he's done it, and he's done it well, and he's been down there now for 3 fights. I think he had the Mariah fight that he lost, but he won that fight, let's be honest. And then he had the Petr Yan fight, which Yan beats majority of the bantamweights out there, and then he bounced back with the win against Marlon Vera last time out. And there's a win versus Pedro. We were talking last week. We've got Aljo, Yan, Dillashaw, Sandhagen, all. Obviously you got the champion, but they're all ahead of Jose Aldo. And a win against Pedro Munoz, I don't think jumps ahead of Sandhagen or jumps ahead of Dillashaw or obviously Petr Yan, who's scheduled. Mm-hmm. Further down, you've then got the Rob Fonts and the Cody Garbrandt. So it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight. Whether we'll see Aldo work the ground game a bit more like he did against Marlon Vera, or just stick to standing. I think the first round will be a very much feeling out process, and then we'll see either plan A for Aldo, where he works the ground game, or plan A where he sticks to the stand up, or plan B where he works the ground game like he did against Vera. But I see an Aldo probably decision again.
Yeah, same. I don't know how injured Aldo's Yeah, it's kind of the same thing where he's been in the sport for so long. Sometimes he has some pretty bad injuries, or he just doesn't want to kick because it hurts. Like it broke his foot in a few fights. But all things being equal, we don't have any problems coming in. Jose Aldo's a smart pick in this fight. I'm gonna say win or lose. Even if he loses, it's probably by decision. He's not getting smoked in this fight by no means. I think win or lose, he's probably should fight Dominic Cruz at 135. Why not? That's a great fight. You got your two top guys from two different weight classes. I think that's a good fight. But yeah, I think Aldo beats Pedro Munoz here. I think that's a pretty good fight as well.
Yeah,
Anything else on that one, or should we jump down to?
I think I'm definitely excited for Luque Michael Chiesa.
This is a great fight. This is a great fight.
I think that's the highlight on the card as a whole, but certainly on the main card, that's the one that's sticking out for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's again like Aldo and Munoz. It's difficult because you've got so many players at 170. You've got, obviously we heard last week that Usman and Covington are all but booked, but then you've got Edwards and Burns. You've still got Thompson in the mix. That obviously holds a dominant win over Luque. You've got Masvidal still in and around the top 5, top 10. But this fight, I think, Luque is coming off the submission victory over Woodley last time out.
So good. So good.
He's just a very good fighter, Luque, and he doesn't do anything brilliantly, but he does everything very well. Like we say, Damian Maia, phenomenal on the floor, not a very good striker. Luque, very good striker, wide range of submissions, can wrestle, can work it in the clinch. If he needs to fight at a range, he'll fight at a range, but he is an in-the-face fight. He's very good all-rounded rather than being a specialist in one area. And I think, that, in my opinion, is what's going to probably win him this fight.
So you're picking Luque coming in here. He had...
I think so, yeah. For me, it's one of the closer ones on the card. But I do like Michael Chiesa. He hasn't shown me an awful lot at 170. He's got the win over Carlos Condit when Carlos Condit was, on that losing streak. He beat Diego Sanchez, and Diego Sanchez isn't the Diego Sanchez that we sort of grew up with, as it were. Held the wins over RDA and Neil Magny are both good, but
yeah,
it was the size advantage that I think he held. I know they were both previous lightweights, but Chiesa is a big welterweight now. It's the size advantage over RDA that I think really helped him. And I don't think Neil Magny turned up in the main event against Chiesa last time out on Fight. I think it was on Fight Island, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a strange. It was boring for a start, but it was a strange one. I thought, it was I don't think Chiesa will be able to do that to Luque. I think Luque will, if he's on bottom, he will be hitting him with elbows, hitting him with strikes, always attempting to get back to his feet. And I think it's a shame that this one isn't a main event, because I already know that I was going to, if it does go the 15 minutes, which Luque's finish rate would suggest that maybe it doesn't. I'd already want the extra 2 rounds. So.
No, he's had some amazing fights. He outstruck guys like Mike Perry when that really kind of actually meant a little bit more 2 years ago. He had fight of the year with Brian Barberina. It was a really good year from Randy Brown, who's everyone's best friend. We're all friends with Randy Brown, Nico Price, Tyron Woodley, and he finished him off as well. He's had a pretty good run. I am going to pick Chiesa though. I think because he is, like you said, he had the one-arm Kimura against Carlos Condit, Diego Sanchez, Rafael dos Anjos, guys that he should be beating. He beat. And I know he struggled with Kevin Lee and stuff. I'm just going to pick Chiesa. I think he deals with Vicente Luque's flaws a little bit more, where he can't stand with him at all. But I think he's a lot longer. He's going to use his wrestling base a lot more effectively. So I'm glad we disagree with each other finally. So
I was going to say, after about 4 or 5 fight nights in a row where we've pretty much picked the same person, I'm glad that we've got a clash of interests.
So yeah, I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa. I think he gets it done on the ground. It's going to be a decision. I don't think he's going to submit him. He's not going to finish him off, but I think he's going to have top position control for the majority of the fight. And the winner of this fight, there is some pretty big consequences, probably moving to the top 5 of a division where we need some fresh contenders moving in.
Yes,
Chiesa was one of the guys who was floated as maybe getting the next title shot. And with a win here, you could make the argument that, yeah, he does deserve the next title shot, maybe. So there is some pretty big consequences.
5-0 at the weight, it'd be difficult to ignore him. 5-0. If 2 finishes. If this one, well, he's got 2. He's 2-2, and he 2. I think
Yep.
2 and no, sorry, he's 1-3, 1 finish, 3 decisions.
Right.
So whether this one goes to decision or Luque is a respected name in the division. A win over Luque doesn't do. It's not a gimme. It's always going to be a tough fight. So
absolutely.
I think he's got a real case for at least the number 1 contender shot against Leon Edwards next.
You are in the conversation now with a win. So the consequences, that's a really good fight. That's a great fight right there for the future of 170. Did you want to go to Tecia Torres and Angie Hill?
Yeah, it's just, this fight's doesn't interest me massively. I think obviously with the greatest respect, it goes to the decision. I think all of Tecia Torres' fights, by her last one where she fought a newcomer, have gone to decision in the UFC. But I think finally we're getting this one, because I know that it was cancelled. I think wait, I'll just go and a quick look.
Yeah, it was cancelled a while ago. Yeah,
in December. So I'm not sure why it's taken the best part of 8 months to get back on, but it is what it is. I'm glad that it's finally back on. It does a little bit for the strawweight division, but both of these ladies are always going to be the nearly girls at strawweight. Especially Tecia Torres. She'll get to top 4, top 5 maybe, and then she'll lose to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, or she'll get there and she'll lose to she lost to Wiley Zhang, and she lost to my greatest prospect at the moment, Marina Rodriguez. So
good pick for Brothback too.
Yeah, I'm big fan of hers. Is there anything, do you think, further down the card on the prelims that you're particularly looking out for? Or
Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny. Casey Kenny's just coming off of his very close loss to Dominic Cruz. Yadong Song is a really great fighter. I think that's going to be perhaps a fight of the night sleeper. That's a really good fight in the bantamweight division. Both of the guys do pretty experienced in the UFC at this point combined, and the stakes of this one are quite high as well, and moving up in bantamweight. I like both of these guys quite a bit, so it'll be interesting to see whether Song can work out how to counter the kicks and land a knockout punch as we have seen in the past, or Casey Kenny just controls the fight with long range kicks and maybe does a little bit of wrestling as well. That's a great fight right there. I would say keep an eye on that one. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, sorry about the enunciation, is back. I didn't know that she was back. She's fighting Jessica Penne on this card. This is an interesting one.
I've always been a massive fan of Kowalkiewicz. I think she's fallen on extremely hard times as of late. Just looking down her record now, she obviously had the title fight with Joanna, and then she was finished by Claudia Gadeja.
Yeah,
she managed to get 2 wins back to back, Jodie Escobar and Felice Herrig, but then that knockout loss to Jessica Andrade is, I think, probably still haunting her. It's definitely the biggest knockout we've seen in strawweight history for sure. One punch is not something that you often see at strawweight, and unfortunately for Karolina, she was on the receiving end of it, but she seems in a good place at the moment. I know that she's had eye surgery since being out, but if you just look. If you look down the list of fighters that she's, she holds a win over the current champ, Namajunas. She's fought Jędrzejczyk, who's obviously the former champion. Gadeja, who's a former title contender. Jessica Andrade, who's champion and multiple-time contender. Michelle Waterson, top contender. Alexa Grasso, Yang Xiaonan. So, you're looking, these are all top fighters, and she's never said no to a fight, it strikes me as, and she has been the stepping stone to the top 5 as of late, but now that she's taken a bit of time out, I posted an article about a month ago. She's training, and she's done a lot of training with Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in Poland. That's only going to make it better. There's no chance that training with the former champ and the former title contender and the top, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is still one of the top girls in the UFC. There's no chance that training with her is going to detriment your game. And Jessica Penne last time out, she obviously stepped away. I think she was suspended for a while. She had multiple cancellations. She stepped back in after 4 years, got the split decision against a fairly novice fighter. So I think Kowalkiewicz takes this one fairly. It'll be a decision because that's the way Kowalkiewicz fights. But I think she handles Penne fairly well, if Penne can make weight, because we've seen Penne miss weight a few times.
if Carolina's in the right headspace and she's made the improvements, yeah, this is an extremely winnable fight for her. I agree with you. Menel Cape versus Od Osborne. Really looking forward to this fight. I think both guys. Menel Cape's coming off 2 decision losses in the UFC. Just
Yeah,
weird stuff where he was on a run of great knockouts and rising against like Kyoji Horiguchi, Kaya Sakura. He was the guy that I said, watch this guy. He's probably the next champion. And he looks like he's kind of floating around in the UFC, but he's fighting Od Osborne, who again backs kind of against the wall. He has 1 win in the last little while here. A lot of hype on him as well. So I think it's a high stakes fight, and I'm hoping to see Menel Cape really show who he is and really show what he can do. Right?
Yeah, I want to watch Cape go for the finish because the past, I think, I think it was his debut or one of his fights. I think when he fought Pantoja, he was convinced that he'd won that one.
Yeah,
and I was surprised when he didn't. And, as ridiculous as that sounds, he's surprised when he didn't win it. But he was obviously being told that he'd won that fight. Don't leave it in the hands of the judges. Go out and look for the victory.
Especially when it's that close. So even if you're being told, it's close.
Exactly. And he would have known that it was a close fight. Like it's not that it's not a robbery by any stretch, because I think probably many people did score it for him, but it only matters what the 3 judges score it for. And as long as you're looking for the finish, the chances are that we've seen with Cape, the finish can come. So
absolutely,
I'm excited to see that one.
Absolutely. And I think unlike Pantoja, it's people like this, Od Osborne possibly is a good guy to get a knockout against or lose to. You might just lose to Od Osborne. It's really tough. Both of these guys are tough to read sometimes, where I think at their best, Menel Cape should win. But, maybe, it's really hard to read this sport sometimes. And
yeah, exactly.
What else you want to cover on UFC 265, or is that about squared up?
I think last but certainly not least, Raphael Fizez versus Bobby Green. I'm excited to see Fizez back in there, coming off 3 straight wins. Obviously, the decision against Alex White back in 2019, we saw him dominate Mark Diakese, and that savage knockout of Renato Moicano last time out. He's fighting Bobby Green. We know all about Bobby Green. He's got a strange style that he's very much in the Philly shell, trying to. It doesn't work. It won't work against Fizez, because Fizez will attack you legs, body, head, legs, body, head all night. And we know that Bobby Green occasionally takes 7 to land 1, and that's not going to work against someone with the power of Fizez. Bobby Green is in his last. He hasn't had every fight's gone the distance since he was knocked out by Dustin Poirier in 2016. So, we know that he's got a chin, but he's lost to the likes of Edson Barboza, Dustin Poirier, Drakkar Klose. Last time out, Thiago Moises.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of a career resurgence when he won 3 on the bounce, but as soon as he stepped up into that upper echelons against Thiago Moises, that's top 15, top 20, and he failed. But I'm excited to see Raphael Fizez back. I think he can be a real contender at 155 if he can stay a little bit more active. We haven't seen him since last December, which it's not loads of time out, but I want to. Whether I'm just being slightly biased, I just want to see him fight every week. I think he's really, really good, and I think. Like I say, I think he can be a top contender, and a win over Bobby Green is always going to be beneficial. So,
absolutely, it does seem like they are setting up Fiziev here for like this is it for you. You need to really fight a top guy, a guy with a name. You're going to get a win, and then we're going to really start pushing you here.
Exactly.
This does seem like it's set up for Fiziev to win. Who's from Tiger Muay Thai gym. He's got like Muay Thai experience. He's a much more technical striker, like you said. He's kind of by the book striker, and I think he can probably get a really nice victory here and really build a name for himself. If you lose to Bobby Green, like you said, he's not getting better. Yeah, lightweight. I don't know what to say about Bobby Green. He's just not getting better. He's not developing as he should. He's a pretty good fighter, but he is very much a gatekeeper, and I think this is what we're going to see in this fight.
Yeah, he talks well, and he's exciting to watch fight because he does get landed on, and he talks trash when he's in there. But like you say, he's he's never going to be in the top 15, top 10. So it's probably a bit of a setup fight for Fizesz.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, that does it. I think that's more than an hour now, so let's wrap it up there. So you're going to have later up on the website, MMA Sucka. You are the editor at the website. You're going to have is it the top Derrick Lewis knockouts? By the time this goes live, this will be up.
Yeah, top 5 Derrick Lewis knockouts. And to be honest, I didn't realize quite how many there were to choose from. 20 knockouts in 25 victories. So, and it was hard to just pick the top 5, but there's a wide range of savage Derrick Lewis knockouts in there, and whether we'll see one this weekend, I'm not quite sure. But we'll be all over. We'll have results, we'll have staff picks, we'll have previews all over the website all weekend. So head over to MMAsucka.com. Pretty much everything you're going to want for UFC 265 this weekend.
Absolutely. Where can we find more of you? What's your Twitter at?
So yeah, my Twitter is Frazer_Krohn. Don't post on Twitter too often, but I do. We're all over there all the time. The MMA Sucka Twitter, the MMA Sucka Instagram as well. It's MMA Sucka on Instagram. That's we're beginning to use that a lot more for promotion as well. So check out everything on there, and definitely check out Tim on Twitter and on Instagram as well.
Well, thank you very much. Frazer Krohn, he's the MMA Sucka editor. My name's Tim Wheaton, and that's the MMA Sucka Crew. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.